Okay, got the air conditioner shut off so you can hear me. Well, here I am back again. The last month or so has been kind of chaotic at work. The place I was working at would only schedule us about 3 weeks ahead, and the schedule was constantly changing even when they did have it. So I could never be sure when I was going to be working, when I was going to be off, and there's really no way that I could set up a stream and get anything accomplished. And I haven't really done a lot of other things in the meantime. Yeah, I've picked up a few odds and ends here and there, and I'll show you those. But in the middle of all this, I decided that I kind of like running a boiler. It's not a terribly demanding job, but you do have to be on the ball and be ahead of things, because when things get entirely out of hand, let me get this down here. When things get entirely out of hand, really bad things can happen. Let me show you an old picture of this. That's what a boiler explosion looks like. That's an old picture. It's from the 1890s, but boilers can and still do explode at times. Used to be, back when this sort of thing happened, is usually material failure. There was a problem with the metal that they built the boiler out of, or a bit of corrosion. Things would rupture and explode. Nowadays, it's mostly negligence and stupidity that happens to them. If you let it boil dry, bad things will happen. But other than that, it's a fairly decent job. And where I was working was kind of just a random chance job. I'm a laborer by trade, and the company I had worked for last fall gave me a call this spring and said, "Hey, we got work. Are you interested?" Well, of course I was. I said, "Sure. What are we doing?" "Well, we're working over at this cheese plant not too far from here." And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'm in," assuming that it would be, construction work. "What are we doing?" "Well, we need people to run the boiler." Okay. So I went along with it and learned how to run the boilers there. But like I said, it was kind of a temporary thing. They'll probably have uh, their employees contracted to work there for another couple of months yet. But after that, they would have their own people finally caught up enough that they could have their own employees working there. So, as luck would have it, I came across an ad in the newspaper one night where another local outfit was looking for a boiler operator. So I applied for the job, and I got it because I had spent the last couple of months running old boilers. The boilers they have at this cheese plant, are the coal boiler is a 1957, and the gas boiler is 1964. And the place where I'm going to be working now are about the same vintage. I mean, they're early 60s when their boilers were put in. So I'm familiar with the, running the older vintage technology. But it ought to be fun, and it'll be a lot more stable. It'll be a permanent job, so I'll be working there full time, and it's a lot more stable rotation of the shift, so I'll be able to schedule things a lot easier in the future. There'll still be a few times when I'm working nights where I probably won't be able to do a stream, but I should be able to do, at least 3 a month or 3 or 4 in a row, depending on exactly how the schedule works out. And maybe miss one and get back to it. I see Six Drops is in the audience. She wanted to see a knife that I have. That's a genuine old-time Italian switchblade. These are legal in Wisconsin, finally. If you have a concealed carry permit, you can own a switchblade. So I can own. You don't actually. You have to be qualified to get a concealed carry permit. You don't actually need one in order to own switchblades in Wisconsin now. So it's kind of cool. You don't have to pretend it doesn't exist anymore. This used to be my wife. She's had that since back in the 60s. But that's an ancient knife. And it's kind of fun. Don't really have a use for it, but kind of neat thing to have. And the C6 drops appreciated it. Yeah, expanding water. When you flash water into steam really fast, it causes some pretty terrible things to happen. There have been explosions in an aluminum foundry over by St. Paul. It's been a while, but they got a wet charge, is what they called it in the industry. They were dumping scrap aluminum into the furnace to melt it down, and there's molten aluminum in there already. It was winter. There was a chunk of ice frozen to the bottom of a piece of aluminum. It all got dumped in, and it managed to submerge that little piece of ice. And when the heat finally got through to it, it flashed it pretty much instantly into steam. And steam has, I think it's 1,600 times the volume of water. Well, when you expand something that hugely that fast, yeah, it's a lot of force. Most boilers, depending exactly how big and what kind of pressure you're running, would have the explosive force about 2 or 3 tons of TNT. So you don't want to be sitting next to it, which is where you would be if you're running it when it goes off. So you really want to keep things well maintained and in proper working order. Who all do we have here tonight? Mike Newby, Billy Lee Lawton, Debbie, Honey Badger, Ryan L. Good to see you guys. John, Darla Allred. 6 drops, of course. I already mentioned and showed you my knife. Cadwin. She's a corpse. Well, we all are eventually. Good to see you. Cast Iron Restorer, Gertrude Perkins, Mrs. Parker. Always nice to see you folks. Me and you, Akers. Susan M. Molly Smith, good to see you. Oh, yeah, the old switchblades. Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, that's a vintage one. And, the really old ones are kind of hard to come by. And at least ones that are halfway decent. That's actually fairly good quality for what they are. Comfort Doll is here. She's lurking and listening. Kind of a funny thing about Wisconsin weapons laws. If you get caught carrying a concealed firearm without a permit, it's generally a misdemeanor. But if you have a taser, it's a felony unless you have a concealed carry permit. Where that makes any kind of sense, I don't know, but that's just the way the law is. But anyway, where was I? Yeah, changing careers. Got that all lined up. It's been like 30 years since I've actually had to go through a job application and interview process because I have a trade and I'm working out of a union hall. Work would come looking for me. So I haven't had to mess around with resumes and applications and all that sort of rigmarole in a long time. And it's kind of a pain, but I managed to get a good enough job with it that I actually got the job. Where did my pop go? There it is. Yeah, I got to put this down because I need the thing it was sitting on. Anyway, as for things that I've been picking up lately here, I used to keep my sugar, and I still got my flour in them, in big popcorn tins. When you get from the, like from the Boy Scouts when they have the popcorn sales, you get like a big, 2.5, 3 gallon tin with 3 different kinds of popcorn in there. And it always worked great, but this summer, somehow or other, the ants finally managed to invade it. So I decided I happened to cross one at an antique shop, one of these old pickle jars. They're like 2.5 gallons. They still make these, and you can get them on Amazon for about $25, and they're pretty neat. But this one is a one from the 70s. The thing is, it didn't have a lid when I got it. The newer ones have a good bit smaller lid than the old ones. You can find lids on Amazon that are 5 5/8, but that's too big because this is 5 1/4. Now, being the clever fellow that I am, I adapted one of these flip top clamp lids that you see on storage jars to fit this. Took a little bit of doing, had to put a screw in on the back side because the band is a good bit smaller than the, even though the lid fits perfectly, the band was in the deep groove in the thing I stole it off of. So, I managed to cobble that together, put a little screw in there to hold it tight, bend the wires a bit, and I can still use the original handle on it. It's just a little bit tight getting it over there, and it works just slicker than can be. So if you ever come across one of these pickle jars, the vintage ones that have the big wide mouth in them that are bigger than the original ones, you can, it's not terribly difficult if you're crafty to adapt one of the lids off of these clamped down storage jars. I got the jar for a couple of bucks at a secondhand store, and that's what's left of the bottom part of it. I don't really have a use for it, but I only paid $3 for it, and that worked out pretty slick. Or you can just go with the brand new ones that you can get on at Amazon. They're made by Anchor Hocking, and like I said, they got a little bit smaller lid on them. Perfect for sun tea. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, it would be. You can make a couple of gallons at a time. But I see quite a few in secondhand stores. 2-gallon glass jars that got a spigot on them just for making sun tea. So you'd probably be better off with something like that. But anyhow, to get some cast iron, I got one more thing down here. Got a few things that I picked up. I got a couple more sitting out in the live bath, but I'll save them for next time around. I found this little guy. This is a number 6 Wagner. It's got the center logo and the heat ring on it. They made these from the early 20s up until late 30s with the logo in the center. And they made these in most sizes. Most of the ones you see, they're a little bit scarcer than the ones that have the logo up here. But they're not super rare. But they're kind of a neat thing to find. And a number 6 is a little bit of an oddball size, so I was happy to find it. And it was fairly cheap. I forget exactly what, but it was a good price. And then forgot what I was going to say next. Yeah, the center logo ones, are generally a little bit less common than the ones with the logos on top. I'm not sure if putting logo, because all through the history, the Wagner name or logo has kind of floated around as far as the exact position of it goes. But the Wagner National dual logo ones had the logos in the center, and these came out about the same time as they started putting the Wagner logo on the National branded pans. National was a budget brand that Wagnerware made, and the center logos came out roughly the same time as the dual logo ones. So I don't know if they, kind of made one set of master patterns, and for the working patterns would add National and just leave it off for Wagnerware branded ones. I'm not exactly positive, but it's a nice little theory. So I also got, besides all of my career changing and weird schedules going on, I'm also in the middle of trying to get rid of some furniture. I'm going to give the dresser set out of my bedroom to my nephew. So I got things torn apart. Took all the stuff out of my dresser, emptied it out, put the clothes in baskets, and I got one basket of more winter clothes type things, heavy denims, heavy t-shirts, that sort of thing. And I could find that. The basket that I put the clothes I'm wearing now, lightweight pants, light t-shirts for the summertime, has disappeared. I have 3 shirts, 2 pair of pants I'd have to keep washing and rotating. I got no idea where this damn basket went. This house isn't that big. It can't be very many places, but I cannot find the sumbitch. It's driving me nuts. So by the time I get done messing around, moving furniture and clearing things out, because I have to take more stuff out of the bedroom yet, jam it in boxes, get it out of the way, pile it up in the living room. You can see a few boxes there behind me next to my head that I'm going to be using. by the time I get done messing around with that, hopefully it'll turn up, but there's no way I could have possibly lost this thing, but it's gone. And in the middle of all this chaos, I had to go to town today because a tree I'm trimming up in my cemetery turns out has a big paper wasp nest in it. So I had to go to town to get some spray so I can deal with them towards evening once it gets towards dark. And I stopped at the grocery stores and bought myself another project. I got a lug of canning peaches that I have to can up sometime this week because they're just about perfectly ripe right now. So sometimes my masochistic tendencies get away from me, but I can always take comfort in the fact that I have found a few little neat things of cast iron. Now, I got this on the Goodwill auction site. If you've been there, you might have seen this. I'm the guy who bought it. What this thing here is, looks like a cast iron flower pot, which is kind of bad because that's what a lot of people ended up using them for. But this is the bottom of a combo cooker. There are a lot of companies still make them. Lodge makes combo. Well, first of all, a combo cooker was basically a combination of like a chicken fryer and a skillet. They often had the skillet so that you could use the skillet as a lid for the chicken fryer or something else. I mean, Lodge still makes a combo cooker like that. But there was also a lot of them where you had a pot, then there would be another shallow skillet that nested on top of that, and then a regular skillet that would cover the top. Now this, set this down, this lid, kind of hard to see, is a John C. Johnson. These are made in Birmingham, Alabama. This skillet lid isn't really the right one for this particular bottom. The one for the Johnsons, it has a wider band on it, and they're a little bit bigger around. But this is for another style they called tab and notch, because there were notches and little tabs. The skillet that would nest on top of this would have a couple of tabs that would slide into the notches, and the skillet cover would have the same. Usually with these combos like this, they were unmarked on the bottom. You know, 2 of the 3 pieces were unmarked, and sometimes all of them were. You know, the Johnson ones like this, you can see that's marked, but none of the other parts of a Johnson combo set are marked. So a lot of these got used for flower pots because they really look like flower pots, especially the Johnson ones. They're not quite as curved under like this. They're more straight-sided. And they have these little loop handles on the pot, and the second skillet would have the loop. And, you know, a regular skillet handle on the cover. They're kind of hard to find, the bottoms. You see the skillet lids fairly often because, you know, they look like a frying pan, and most people would recognize that as a skillet and hang on to it. But finding the bottoms for them are kind of tough. So when this came up on the Goodwill site, I jumped on it. Came with a lid, and the pictures, they didn't really show very well what the lid was. You can see that there was a raised number 8 on it. Actually, it'd be on there like that. But that was it. They never showed you the inside of it. And when you get into something like this, the price of the lid, there's a good chance that it'll drive up the price of the pot, because a lot of people wouldn't really recognize what this pot is. You know, but of course, somebody who does, the price of the pot would drive up everything else. But I got a fairly good price. I think it was $50 for the 2 of them. Somebody run my bid up at the last minute, because that's what you do on an online auction site. But the lid actually turned out to be kind of a bonus, because once you get inside, on the underside, not sure how well you can see that, there's a 4-digit catalog number on there that's italicized, and this style of grip rings on it. This is a Griswold Iron Mountain lid, for more than likely for a Iron Mountain Dutch oven. And if they would have shown the inside of that, it would have went for a good bit more than the I think it was $54 I paid for both of these. The whole thing would have went for a lot more than what it did. So it's kind of nice that they weren't terribly good on their picture taking. But anyway, I got I got that. Now, of course, I have the bottom to a combo cooker of one type, the top to another type. Now I'm gonna have to try and find the tops for this style. But it's pretty slick. And I was happy to find it because you don't see them come around all that often. Let me back up on my extra crispy socks. I do have socks. I mean, I got like 8 pair of socks floating around because my sock drawer was in a different basket than everything else. So I just did the first 7 quarts of potatoes pressure canning from the pressure canner video I did. Yeah, best on YouTube. Well, thank you much. Thanks for your effort on that. Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a popular video. It's got a lot of views. And I put it up 3 years ago now, I think it was. And about this time of year, you start seeing a lot of extra views on it once canning season comes around and people are looking for videos on running a canner. Yeah, it's a pretty good shape. I mean, it doesn't look like it's really corroded too bad on the inside. Yeah, I don't think it saw a whole lot of flower pot duty, if any. But once I get her in the electrolysis tank, that'll clean up pretty good. Yeah, it's always fun. You can, like I said, you can find the skillet lids. I mean, they're around. They're not, they're not really common, but you do see them fairly often. And like I said, the bottoms are really tough to find. What's really hard to find is the middle section, the skillet with the 2 loop handles on it, because those just kind of drifted away. 6 drops giving me compliments on my nice Johnson. It's always good to find a nice Johnson. But anyway, like I said, that Iron Mountain lid was really kind of a nice bonus because by itself, something like this usually sells for, $50, $60, sometimes more if somebody really wants one. So for what I paid for the 2 of them, that'll pay for the whole thing. Let's see, set that aside. And one last thing that I found, something shiny. Ooh, chrome plated. That is a small logo Griswold chrome plated number 8 skillet. The place I got it from, they're usually kind of high on their stuff, but they only wanted $30 for that. That'll already show there. A little better angle. The light's kind of bright. But anyway, $30 for that, and that's a good price for something like this. The plating's in real nice shape, especially on the outside. There's a little bit of wear on the bottom. Now, most of the plated Griswold, a lot of what you'll find anyway, is chrome plated, and they called it duochrome. What that means is the bottom, you can see even where the plating is still intact, it has kind of a dull satin look. It's because they didn't polish the bottom of the pan, but they polished the outside nice and smooth and shiny, and then they chrome plated it, so you get nice bright chrome plating. And they polish the top of the handle real good, but the bottom they leave a little bit more. And the lids, they would the center of the lid they leave unpolished, and then around the outside they would polish it. It's a really cool effect. And $30 for a nice, real nice shape. I mean, all that needs to be is washed and it's ready to go. $30 for that is a pretty fair price. Usually something like that goes more like 40 or 50. So I was tickled to find that. Do you ever buy Chicago hardware foundry stuff with the dings that decorate the outside? Yeah, the Chicago hammered ware. I don't have any right within arm's reach, but I do have a few Chicago hardware hammered things and some not hammered things as well. You found the middle section, but it was cracked. So sad, but I still took it. Yeah, I probably would have grabbed it too. I've ever seen a BSR that has black enamel on the cooking surface and up the sides. Uh, BSR didn't really enamel their own pans. There are a lot of enameled BSR pans out there, and I have some. But can you hear that dog snoring? Anyway, they sent theirs out to another company that did the enameling on them, and it doesn't really matter. I haven't seen one that's black on the cooking surface and up the sides. Griswold, some of their Dutch oven lids, they put black enamel on the inside and left the outsides plain. It's kind of a non-stick, an early non-stick, easy clean coating, they called it. So Griswold is known for that. Like I say, BSR, I don't know, but I don't know all that much about a lot of their enamel stuff. I do have a couple of pieces. I have a 2-quart pot, and I have an old chicken fryer that I got from my mother-in-law. Speaking of cracked, hopefully now I'll have time to finally get around to making some videos again. I got a half a dozen of them piled up that I need to get done, and I haven't done a damn thing with them. You ended up getting a smart waffle iron for my Canadian collection. Well, it'd be the entirety of it right now. You have to get hold of me on Facebook, Angie, and we'll set up something for that. Yeah, it sounds really cool. Smart waffle iron. Because I've been talking back and forth with me and New Acres because they're up in Canada, trying to get hold of some Canadian cast iron. You see a bit of it around here, but it tends to go kind of high. And, a lot of, it's not very common. I don't know why you wouldn't see more of it, at least in the northern part of the U.S. where I am, because you do see some Griswold and Wagner, because we're in the Great Lakes area, most, Griswold, Wagner, things like that. And a lot of the Canadian cast iron were made basically on the opposite side of Lake Erie. You would think there'd be a little bit more trade back and forth than there was, but I guess there really wasn't. Everybody was kind of sticking to domestically produced. And by the time you end up importing it with the tariffs and all of that, it would tend to make the whatever was the native stuff a lot cheaper than importing something from Canada or the U.S., depending on which way it goes. But I still kind of think there'd be some trade back and forth across the lake. If there's anything specific, send you a list. Yeah, I'll have to do a little bit of thinking and see what exactly. I don't have any Canadian cast iron at all. And what I'd like to get a hold of first. I'll have to try and figure that out, I guess. And some of it figure out even what's out there. I know some of the brand names and things like that, which is kind of nice, but it's kind of figure out some of the things that they made and what would be the coolest thing to have if you can find it. But yeah, I'll definitely find something out and get a hold of you. Let's see here. Last weekend you got 3 pens. Not sure. Not sure what they are. It's kind of the fun of it. Oh, I was going to ask you guys while you're watching, what you think about the videos that I do, going through the Goodwill auction site, looking at things, different brands, different prices, and things like that. I kind of like doing them, maybe try and do them like once a month. It's kind of lazy. I don't really have to set up a whole lot of things, just, keep track of a few extra things as I go. And yeah, I mean, if you like them or if you have any suggestions of things that you'd like to see, or if you don't like them, whatever, let me know in the comments here, and I'll kind of adjust things as I go. I'll probably do one, not the next show, but the one after. And I was thinking about, it's kind of, how you can pick out lots, because a lot of times they'll have 4 or 5 items all kind of lumped together. And some of the things you need to look for when you're just kind of scrolling through the site. things to, so it's easy to tell just scrolling through the site whether or not it's even worth looking at closer. A lot of times they're kind of, not terribly good with their picture taking on and things. When you get a whole bunch of stuff, they'll say, say there's like 6 or 8 different skillets in there and only 2 of them are marked. They'll show you the ones that are marked, the back of them, but they tend not to show the ones that aren't marked, which is really what you kind of want to see so you can get some idea of what it might be. And it takes a little bit of poking and picking at it and a little bit of practice, but before long you can get to where you can just kind of scroll through the site and look at the thumbnail picture and say, yeah, well, that's not worth bothering to even look closer at. And there's a couple of the Goodwill Easter seals of Minnesota is the absolute worst for their picture taking. They'll take 6 or 8 pictures, but they'll have 4 skillets all stacked together. They'll show you 8 different angles of that stack of skillets, but they won't take them apart, spread them out, and show you what the backsides look like. And it never fails. They'll show you every possible thing about all of the pans, except for the one thing that you actually need to see to be able to tell what it is. And there's more than a few, of the different, because the way the site works, it's Goodwills all over the country list items on this one site. And it seems to happen all the time. I mean, the one little detail that you'd like to see so that you can, make a really good decision whether or not you want to bother trying to bid on this or take a chance on bidding on something that you can't really quite identify. And it seems like they always miss that one detail, but there's ways around it, and I'll kind of show you at that. You live in Texas and wonder if Goodwill has an auction. Like I said, there's this online site, but most state Goodwills do have a live in-person auction where you can go in, and what they do is they usually bring out stuff in bins and you buy the bin. Wisconsin has one in, I think it's Appleton, maybe, somewhere kind of in the eastern, southern part of the state, where they have a big central warehouse stuff where things get sent and get redistributed or auctioned off there. And Texas probably does have something like that. If you look into the Texas Goodwills, they probably have like a central distribution warehouse, and they usually have like monthly or weekly auctions. Like I said, you'll go in and you'll buy a bin full of pans. I mean, there's cast iron, there's aluminum, there's good stuff, there's junk, and you just bid on the whole big bin. And the same thing with clothes and computers, parts, electronics, everything. They just kind of sort it by what it is, give you a big pile, and here you go. Go ahead and bid on it. And they usually give you they'll wheel out 50 bins of things. They'll give you 20 minutes to look at it, and then they'll auction them off. So, it could be kind of fun to actually go to one of those, and maybe someday I'll actually will. But yeah, I mean, it's quite the thing. So if you get a chance to look into it, they probably do have one in Texas like that. But like I said, there's the shopgoodwill.com auction site where where Goodwills from all over the country, post these items and they put them up for bid like on eBay. And, the drawback of that, of course, is then you have to pay for shipping for it. So you have to, you can get an estimate for shipping. You punch in your address and they'll give you a estimate of what it would cost to ship. And you have to factor that into what you're willing to pay for something and what it's worth paying. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I mean, even with, $25 shipping on something fairly heavy or 2 or 3 items, it can still be worthwhile to get it if you're paying $25 for something that's worth $75. So you're paying $50 total, for the shipping and the item, and you're still coming out ahead. But if you're paying $60 for something that's worth 75 and you have to pay $25 to ship it, you're not doing so good. But it all kind of, I usually kind of discuss that a little bit when we're going through the auction site items. Got cotton mouth a little bit. I've been working outdoors, and Mountain Dew doesn't really quench your thirst very well. It actually makes you want to drink more because they're evil that way. And that's pineapple Mountain Dew. That's actually pretty tasty. Like I said, you could drink a 12-pack of it and never really kill your thirst all that good. So eventually here I'll switch to water. If the picture looks sketchy, Goodwill or eBay, it's a hard pass for you. Yeah, I mean, on eBay especially, you really got to watch out for that sort of thing. They'll have, 4 or 5 pictures, but they all got just a little bit of shake to them, so you can't quite make out any detail on it. And yeah, a lot of times you'll run into scammers doing that. With the Goodwill, it's not so much a scam, it's just bad pictures, really. But sometimes they do have actually bad pictures, where they're shaky or out of focus or something like that. But usually, people taking the pictures don't really understand what people who are buying cast iron want to see. They'll show you the inside of the pan, or close up of that little stain there, which is nice if you're interested in it. And they'll show a side view and an end view like that. Maybe an end view like that. But they won't always show you the top of the handle, which is kind of a clue as to what something might be. If it's got a lot of crustiness on it, you can't make out logos. If you see an 8 like that, that's going to be a Griswold of some sort. But a lot of times they won't really show you the top of the handle, and sometimes you can't see anyway what it is. And they'll show you a little bit of the back. Well, you can see that's a small logo Griswold, but you can't see what size it is. This because on the small logos, it's pretty small. It just says number 8 there. They might show you something like that, where you could see just the logo and the Erie PA as a close-up, but you can't see the catalog number or the size, so you don't really know what size it is. And they don't always give you what the measurements are. A lot of times they do, and you can figure out what size it is by the dimensions they give you. But they also have a tendency to measure all the way across and include the handle. So this would be like a 18 by 10.5 by 2, and the 18 is including the handle, and a 10.5 would be about the right size. But anyway, that's some of the things they tend to do. Have I bought a counterfeit pan from a scammer? No, I haven't. What I would like to find are some of the old recasts. A lot of times you'll see old Griswold or especially Erie skillets that have a gate mark on the back. Those aren't really Erie skillets. Those are somebody using an Erie skillet as a pattern to cast their own skillet. And they're kind of neat. And, they're just an interesting thing to have. A lot of them the prices on them have really come up because a lot of collectors are thinking, oh yeah, that's pretty neat. I mean, none of the Griswold or Erie branded skillets were ever gate marked. They never used that technique for casting their pans. So if you do see an Erie or a Griswold and somebody's advertising it on eBay as, super rare gate marked Griswold, no, it's a ghost marked recast that somebody used a Griswold or an Erie skillet for as a pattern. And it's the same thing with Wagner's. You do see a lot of old Wagner ware. Not so much the stylized logo, the Wagner ware logo, but the ones that just said Wagner, you do tend to see some of them as recast too. but they're kind of interesting in their own right, but they're not an authentic piece. So they should be cheaper, but they tend to be more expensive than what they actually are. Hang on here. Let's see. My dog is making noise. You want out, don't you? Hang on, I'll be right back. Close that off. Come on, you. Come on, you want it out. You just got to be a nuisance, don't you? Don't go changing your mind on me, you silly much. Come on. Okay, I'm back. Wanted out dreadfully bad, but he wanted to hold out for a treat too. You have quite a few fakes. Wait a minute here. There I am. You have quite a few fakes that you bought for the novelty. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get some of those too, just to have, a known counterfeit. Because, I mean, some of the counterfeit stuff is laughably bad. Brands like Wapak have fake-looking pieces. See, Wapak, especially early on, they used a lot of other people's finished skillets as patterns. That's why there's a lot of ghost marked and butter marked Wapak stuff. And they used a lot of different handle styles. So, yeah, a lot of them do look pretty fake. And there are counterfeits of the Indian head logo Wapaks. Most of them have the wrong style handle on them, but there are some that have the right one. But the casting isn't very good, and the logo is pretty rough looking. So you can usually spot them if you have some idea what a real one looks like. And not too long ago, I bid on it was a fake Griswold cornstick pan, but I got outbid on it because I wasn't going to pay all that much for it. But it would have been pretty cool to have. I once had a ashtray marked Grizz mold. Yeah, and there's quite a few brass and aluminum Griswold, number 0 ashtrays floating around. And those weren't made by Griswold. Some of them actually look pretty nice. They were, somebody used one, used a Griswold for a pattern for a shop project, casting in brass or aluminum. I've seen a couple of them for sale that look pretty good. I wouldn't mind having them. You love my video on using electrolysis. Yeah, electrolysis is a real good way of cleaning up cast iron, getting it back down to bare metal, because it'll take off rust and build up at the same time. Even though a lot of times I still use my lye bath, I'll throw a whole bunch of pans in the lye bath and get all the gunk stripped off of them, and then run them through the electrolysis, because it takes a lot longer if you're trying to do it in one step in the electrolysis. And for me, that's my biggest bottleneck, trying to clean things up. If you do a lot of stripping and restoring, it goes a lot faster if you can strip them first and use electrolysis just to get the rust off. Because, depending on how bad it is, it'll take about 12 or 14 hours to get the rust off of a skillet, with my electrolysis setup, where trying to get all the build up and the rust off will take more like 24 or sometimes longer. and you can only do a few of them at a time. Even with my bigger setup that I have now, you can still only get so many through at once. So with the lye bath, you can strip, a dozen pans at a time and get them down to metal and get a good idea of what you got and whether or not it's worth, going any farther with some sometimes. I found out the hard way that sellers that don't know what they have also sell spinners and wobblers that don't even realize they're doing it. Yeah, you can a lot of times you can kind of tell if they have on pictures. You see how the plating is a little more worn in the center than around the edges. If the pan still has a lot of buildup on it, the buildup will be the same way. It'll be thinner in the middle than on the edges if it has much of a wobble to it. This really doesn't. I mean, this sits pretty flat. But you can kind of tell if they have a picture of it, if it's pretty clean in the middle and it's got buildup out towards the edges, odds are it's got a warp to the bottom of it. So, it's something you can look for in pictures. It's not automatically that way, just because, something like this, burners on a stove, stove grate might be a good bit smaller than what the actual pan is, and it got used for years, on a small burner. But yeah, if it's got a lot thinner buildup or almost none in the center and a heavier buildup on the sides, it's probably got a wobble to it once you get it all cleaned up. I have a Wagner WI salesman sample. Looks like the picture in my books, but you're not convinced it's real. Yeah, I mean, it can be kind of tough sometimes. Some of the salesman samples and the toy skillets especially are a little bit rough, but usually the counterfeits are a lot rougher than what they are. So, I mean, it can be kind of a judgment call sometimes on whether it's real or not. As long as you didn't pay too much for it, it's not too big of a deal. But if you paid, top dollar for something that's supposed to be authentic and it's not, well, that's a whole nother story. But you can do, if you can find other pictures of it online, that can be a lot helpful. Do a Google search for it and, search through the images, try and find as many images as you can. And if you notice that the, majority of them, if there's some that are definitely identified as fakes, that's really helpful too, because then you can see some of the telltale, some of the tip-off signs that something is a fake, because a lot of the fakes have flaws that they repeat over and over because they use the same patterns to make a whole bunch of them usually. And if there's a flaw there, it'll show up in all of them, and it can be a definite identifying mark. I set people in lye, then work interferes for the next 6 weeks. Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff sitting in lye that's been there for longer than it really needs to be, but it doesn't, it doesn't really hurt it. And anyway, back to the counterfeit ones. If you can find some that pretty sure that are real, the same thing applies. You can see the definite, telltale signs of a real one versus a fake, and it can take a little bit of time. Did Wagner or Griswold ever make a Comal type pan for making tortillas? They made a lot of round griddles, which would definitely work for that sort of thing. And they made quite a few skillet griddles, which are basically a flat griddle that has sides that come up a little bit, as opposed to just a flat griddle. So yeah, they did make, things that are pretty similar, not necessarily a definite Comal type pan. But you can definitely find Griswold and Wagner that matches that description. Your internet sucks. You just missed it. I'll keep explaining. Explaining which? Oh, how to tell reals from fakes. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, some of the smaller samples and things like that were not quite as perfectly made as some of the bigger stuff, but even so, you can usually tell that it's better quality than an outright fake. And if you have any questions about it, just do a lot of image searching, try and find as many known real ones and as many known fakes and try and spot the differences and, just kind of match them up. Picked up an A&A Wapak number 9. They use large logo Griswold molds and doctored the molds. They're interesting. Yeah, there's like I said, quite a bit of that stuff went on, especially with Wapak. They used, because it was expensive to make patterns. I mean, it's a trade, and you have to. It's a skilled trade to be able to make patterns for doing cast iron and casting work, and they're expensive to make. So yeah, Wapak really cheated a lot of stuff, and there's other companies did the same. Like I said, the A&A, they use large logo Griswold molds. I found a pan in your lye bath and I have no idea how long it was in there. Don't remember putting it in there. Yeah, I've done that. You'll come up with when did I put that in there? But at least it doesn't harm the cast iron to leave it in there for, maybe if you left it in there for a couple of years, it might be a problem, but leaving it in a lye bath for a month or so, or even 2, isn't really going to hurt it. You need to find a really good pan to cook your eggs. You're really picky when it comes to your eggs. Yeah, it's going to be kind of a hit and miss thing. You have to try a few, and eventually you'll find something that you'll like. I mean, all cast iron pans tend to cook a little bit different, even if they're the same brand, the same size, from the same era. Individual pans sometimes have tiny little differences that you can just barely notice. Some of them are really noticeable in the way they cook. Like I said, one of my best pans for browning things is a cheap little made in Taiwan skillet. I mean, it fries up potatoes just beautifully, a lot better than most of the other pans that I have. Some of these pans work a lot better in the oven for baking things. If you're going to make something, start it off on the stovetop, finish it in the oven, or do baking in a cast iron skillet. Some of them work a lot better than others for that. It just kind of takes time and patience and practice and just using your cast iron and seeing how it acts under different circumstances. Heavier skillets tend to work a little better in the oven than thinner ones, and thinner ones tend to be a little better on the stovetop than the heavier ones. But a lot of them, you can use either one. You can use a heavy pan on the stovetop and a light pan in the oven, and they'll both work out fine. But it's little subtle differences. What is that noise? Huh. Sounded. Huh. I don't know what that noise was. Kind of a weird squeaky noise. Do I have a Griswold 666 pan? No, I don't. I haven't got one of those. Those go for pretty good money. The Griswold 666 pan is it's an all-in-one breakfast skillet. It's divided into 3 compartments. It's basically a square skillet and it's got kind of where the dividers are, the sides indent a little bit. They're a neat looking pan. And eventually I'll get one. I have one unbranded breakfast skillet like that. It was made so you could fry up a couple, 3 strips of bacon and 2 eggs. Was it a bug? I'm not sure what that was. I mean, the dog was barking outside. He might have been doing something, but yeah, it was an odd bug or a frog or some strange electronic device I don't know about over in that corner. Your 3-notch Lodge number 8 cooks eggs awesome, fried or scrambled. Yeah, a lot of the old Lodge pans, had real nice surfaces on them before they quit machining them in the mid-ish 80s. They quit machining them. And a lot of the Lodge pans cook really nice. It's not, like I said, it's not really an absolute that heavier pans are for the oven, and lighter ones are for the stovetop. And even so, I mean, different pans all act differently. It's just a matter of using them and cooking them and kind of paying attention to which ones work best for what. And, like I said, that little made in Taiwan 50-cent pan I got ages ago, is the one I usually use for frying potatoes because it just browns them so beautifully. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot better than most of the other pans I have, whether they're heavy or light. Just something about that pan works great for potatoes. Shanudo 145, glad to see you back. Oh, it's great to be back. And, we're almost time to go here. Them dogs are barking at something. Maybe they're barking at whatever the hell made that noise. But we're coming up on an hour, so we're going to wind things up before too much longer. Any final questions we got? I should be back next week. I don't see why not. But once I get settled into my new job, I'll have a lot better handle on when I'm going to be available. And like I said, hopefully I should be able to get some videos finally made because I've really been wanting to do that and I just haven't been able to. Where it was before, we worked 12-hour shifts and I was working 6 at night till 6 in the morning, which kind of screws up getting things done the next day because you got to sleep before you turn around and go back to work again. And if you get 2 or 3 days off, the first day off, you're asleep because you just got done working until 6 in the morning the night before. But, I generally kind of prefer night shifts anyway. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But, 12 hours is a great plenty. And this new job will be 8-hour shifts. So I'll have more time to get things done. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to wrap this up for 57 minutes, a little short of an hour, but I think I did pretty good for my first time back in a long time. It took me a while to remember how to run some of these things. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday, and I hope you have a nice week. There we go.